everyone, welcome to Law Study Kit. I'm Rabia. I'm a Canadian immigration lawyer based in Toronto, Ontario, and I'm also the founder of Law Study Kit. Today I'd like to talk about 5 most common mistakes that people make when they're studying for their NCA exams. I'm sure there are a lot of them, but I want to focus on 5 of these because I think that these are important and I think that you should know them beforehand so that you can prepare for your exams in a more effective manner. First mistake that many people make is that they think that they can prepare for a course in a week or 2 weeks. Now, you might have heard from your friends or somebody that you know that they didn't even study for these exams and then they passed them, or they studied for 5 days or 2 days, or they even opened their book one day before the exam. But don't believe anything that people tell you. These courses are extensive and you shouldn't be waiting till the last minute to prepare for each course. Now, I'm not saying that you need like months and months of preparation, but for example, if you're taking one course, I would at least have 4 to 6 weeks for myself in order to prepare for that course. Just because it takes time to read the materials. It takes time to actually understand what you're going to be tested on. Because if you just read the materials and you're memorizing it or you're just trying to understand it, that's not what you're tested on. You're tested on a whole lot of different skills. So I would think that you need at least 4 to 6 weeks. And again, this is, a little bit more time than what other people would say. But I think it's better to be safe than sorry. And a lot of times when people tell you that they only prepare for like 5 days, it could also mean that they've prepared for these courses or they've taken these courses at a law school or they work in this area of the law. That's why they're familiar with a lot of concepts. If you're new to this and you've never ever studied this before, I don't think a week or 2 weeks is enough. And if you're somebody who's thinking about it, I highly recommend that you take your time and read through the materials, understand what you're being tested on, and prepare properly. Because these are skills that you're developing that you're going to use later on in your practice as well. Second mistake that people make is memorizing the material. Now remember, it's an open book exam. You don't have to memorize the material. There's no point in memorizing the material because the questions on the exam will never ask you to answer a question where you just have to copy paste. The questions test your concepts. The question tests your ability to figure out what are important issues in the fact, how you analyze those facts, and then come to a decision. So if you're just learning and you're memorizing material and notes, it's not going to benefit you in any way. You should be more focused on learning the skill. You should be more focused on, for example, when you're reading material, look at the material from a different eye. Like, for example, look at the analysis. Look at why the decision was, if you're reading a case law, why was the decision made this way? What were the reasons? And if you were to be the judge, how would you do it? Like, how would you apply those rules? So again, people who memorize, the books or the notes or anything else, even if you spend like 2 months, it's not gonna be worth it because you're memorizing something which is not needed for the exam. The third mistake that people make is not focusing on concepts. Now, a lot of times when people are reading the materials, it's actually linked to the point that I mentioned before. When you're studying law, and I'm sure a lot of you have practiced in different jurisdictions, you know that it's about the concept of what the law is and how you apply it. If you're just going to memorize how the law was applied, then you're not really learning the concepts. So if you're not learning the concepts, then you're not really preparing for these exams. Now, for example, in common law, and again, this is just like a very simple example that I'm giving. I'm not going to go into too much complexity, but for example, when you're reading the books, or the material, you learn that in common law, when you read cases, you follow precedent. So precedent is what was decided by a higher level court in a similar situation as the one that you have right now. So this is what the principle is, that you will follow the precedent. So if that's all you learn, that, hey, I have to follow the precedent, you're just learning the basic rather than actually going into the case law and reading how previous cases have been applied. So that is when you're learning the concept. You learn as to how it's applied, how does the judge or whoever deciding, like how are they writing the decisions, as opposed to just memorizing, oh, I have to follow a precedent. So concept, very, very important. If you're not learning or analyzing different principles, then you're not really preparing for what you're supposed to be tested on. The mistake that people make is thinking that they will be able to manage their time on the exam without actually practicing time management. Time management is a very, very important skill, and I think I've mentioned this in my previous videos. The first NCA exam that I wrote, I ran out of time. I had about 10 minutes, or I would say 5 minutes left, and I had like a 12-mark question left that I did not even read, just because, you know, when I started writing the answers, I thought that I had a lot of time because I don't know where my time went. So if you don't practice enough as to timing yourself, writing or typing down answers in a manner where you're actually writing an exam, you're not gonna learn that skill. Sometimes you think that you have time, but by the time you get to your last question, you barely have any time left. So practice, practice, practice. You know, put yourself under pressure. Know that, you know, if you say that you're going to finish this exam if you're going to finish a question in like 15 minutes, you're just going to move on to the next no matter what happens. So people take this very, very lightly, but time management is an actual skill and you can practice it as much as you like, because that's only when you're going to be good at it. Otherwise, you're up for surprises on the day of the exam. Last mistake that people make, and this is one of the most important one that I talk about, I think, in most of my videos, is that not practicing enough sample questions and answers. So I talked a lot about concepts. I talked a lot about not memorizing stuff. Now, when you practice sample questions and answers, you learn the skill of applying the text to actual facts. So I think I spent most of my time the last, I believe, 2 weeks or a week and a half just practicing exams and learning the technique as to how to answer an exam question. Very, very important. If you don't practice exam questions, it is likely that you're gonna spend more time thinking on the exam, or you're gonna have to spend a little bit more time understanding like what to do on the day of the exam. Now, I know that there are not a lot of sample questions and answers available, but a lot of law school libraries have sample questions available, and I can link it in the description box below. UBC Law Library has tons of questions available, but be very careful when you practice them because some questions are not part of our syllabus, so I wouldn't be too worried if you don't know what the hell is going on, but still practice them. Take a look at it. Even if you don't know the answer, I would still practice it just so that you're ready to start thinking in an analytical way. If you are looking for additional help, we sell sample questions and answers at Law Study Kit. I've drafted the questions myself, taking a look at the entire syllabus. And I've drafted model answers, and I have some comments in there to guide you as to why I've written the answers the way that I've written, and just kind of explaining the technique as to how to write answers. If you're interested, you can take a look at lawstudykit.com. I can put it in the description box below, and hopefully that would be helpful for you. Thanks for watching. Good luck for your NCA exams. I know that you're going to do great. And if you want me to talk about something specific, please leave the question below and I'm going to try to get back as soon as possible. Thank you. Take care. Bye.